Sunshine, My Wonder. Written by A. 30. Read by Ashe. One more report. As soon as he finished one more report, he would get out of the office and head to bed. Dimitri had been telling himself one more report for the better part of an hour now. It's not that he was behind on his work, nor were these matters very pressing or time-sensitive, but he liked to stay ahead. He didn't want any surprises, just in case the Commerce Chancellor did drop by in the morning, even though she wasn't expected until the next day. After all, it wouldn't bode well for the king to garner a reputation of being unprepared for guests into his court. Felix called it utter foolishness. Dimitri preferred to think of it as having forethought. His phone rang, bringing him out of his thoughts. He relaxed, smiling at the name on the caller ID, and answered, "Hello, Ashe." "Hi," Ashe greeted him softly with a hint of sleep in his voice. "Sorry to call so late. Are you busy?" "I'm never too busy for you, beloved." Ashe groaned. Dimitri pictured Ashe blushing profusely from his neck to the tips of his ears. It had been a few weeks since Ashe returned to Gaspard, and Dimitri was surprised at how much he missed him. Their relationship was still very new to them both, but phone calls and video chats helped to bridge the distance. There was a rustling on the other end of the phone, the sound of Ashe turning over in bed. Dimitri imagined his boyfriend snuggled within the sheets, a book nearby for now, though it would inevitably end up on the floor or pressed into Ashe's cheek. "Are you still in the office?" Ashe continued, a statement rather than a question. Somehow, he always knew when Dimitri was putting in longer hours. "I am, but I'm almost done." "Dimitri..." Dimitri's heart skipped a beat. Ashe had been getting more comfortable addressing him by his given name rather than royal title, and each time he did, Dimitri felt warm. I know. This is my last report, I promise. Please don't worry." "I don't want you overworking yourself," Ashe continued, concerned. "When was the last time you had a proper break? Or vacation?" Dimitri leaned back in his chair, the furniture letting out a high-pitched squeal. "It's been a while," he admitted. Ashe hummed. "I thought so. But with the New Year's approaching, you'll be able to take some time for yourself, right?" "Yes. It is a long weekend, and I shouldn't have anything pressing to attend to." "Good." Dimitri could tell Ashe had relaxed. "You should, would you like to come here for the New Year's celebration?" Dimitri sat silently, processing the offer. Ashe was inviting him to Gaspard, his family home, to celebrate the start of a new year. It was a simple yet romantic gesture. In movies and novels, holidays were depicted as major events for any new or budding relationships. Being introduced to your partner's family was as much a rite of passage as it was a trial to prove yourself worthy of said partner. This wasn't a movie or novel, of course, though it would be the next big step for them as a couple, and Dimitri couldn't help but feel the need to prove himself, so to speak. "No pressure, of course," Ashe hastily offered, mistaking Dimitri's silence for hesitation. "I know you're busy and probably can't take too much time away from court, but I was thinking, with it being a long weekend..." "Oh, you know what? Forget it. That's selfish of me. I understand." "Yes." "Pardon?" Dimitri chuckled and shifted his phone to his other ear. "I said yes. I would love to, Ashe. I would be honored to celebrate the New Year in Gaspard with you and your family. I'll ask you to begin making the arrangements." "Really? Great! Oh my gosh, I'll tell everyone first thing in the morning." They spoke about their days for a little while and said their goodnights. After hanging up, Dimitri sent a quick email to Dudu with the general plan. No sooner had he set his phone on his desk to return to the report he'd been working on, it vibrated with a notification. From Dudu. R.E. New Year's plans. "Of course, Your Majesty. Ashe and I have been in touch. I am already working on it. Please do not stay in the office too much later." Dimitri shook his head and laughed, wondering when his boyfriend and vassal had begun conspiring behind his back. He looked at the report on his desk and decided it could in fact wait until morning. With some careful planning and schedule management, Dimitri would be able to spend the entirety of the long holiday weekend in Gaspard. Court would be officially adjourned on the 28th, though most business would wrap up a day before. Since the New Year's fell on a Saturday, the king would not be needed back at the palace until the following Tuesday. It was serendipity that the timing worked out so well. As the plane landed at the Gaspard airport, Dimitri began to feel nervous. It was a bit ironic in a way. Dimitri had known Lord Lenato Gaspard, Ashe's adopted father and governor of the territory, since he was old enough to attend court at his late father's side. They were not strangers. Yet, within the context of this trip, of meeting Lenato not as the king, but as his son's partner, it was nerve-wracking. Would Lenato approve of Ashe being involved with Dimitri in such a personal way? What about Ashe's brother, Christoph? Or even Evelyn, his sister? Do they think he is worthy of Ashe? He stepped off the gangway, and all his concerns and doubts evaporated immediately as he laid eyes on the person of his affections. Ashe stood in the terminal smiling, as bright as the sun in the sky. Dimitri was certain. His hair was growing out and pulled back in a short ponytail. It took an amazing amount of willpower not to run into his arms. The king was able to manage a hurried yet dignified walk. "Hi," Ashe greeted him softly, almost nervously. He cleared his throat and bowed. "Welcome to Gaspard, Your Majesty. How was your flight?" Dimitri noticed that some of the travelers had turned toward them, the sight of their king and a king just spotting a celebrity on the street. Ashe, always observant and vigilant, had defaulted to formal protocol in addressing Dimitri. They had announced their relationship before Ashe left the capital, so any informality between them shouldn't be a surprise to others around them. He made a mental note to talk about it later. "Long, but not unwelcome," he replied. Ashe nodded. "I'm glad to hear it, Your Majesty. We have a car waiting if you follow me." They walked through the small airport side by side, exchanging pleasantries. Their hands brushed as they walked, and finally Dimitri took Ashe's hand in his. He felt Ashe tense, and rubbed his thumb soothingly over Ashe's skin. "If this is okay with you, it's okay with me," he assured him. Ashe looked at Dimitri and slowly relaxed. He laughed, cheeks flushing. "It is. Sorry, I guess I'm still nervous and unsure about our boundaries." Dimitri nodded. "You have nothing to apologize for. This is still new to us both, and there's a bit of a learning curve. We'll talk about it later." They rode to the manor in relative silence, holding hands and sharing a kiss here or there while Ashe pointed out notable landmarks and buildings. When they arrived at the Gaspard manor, Lenato and Christoph were there to greet them as the car pulled off. "Welcome to Gaspard, Your Majesty," Lord Lenato said with a bow. "We are honored to host you for the New Year's." "Thank you for your hospitality, Lord Gaspard," Dimitri replied. "I am excited to be visiting the West and to be celebrating with you all." "Don't hesitate to let us know if you need anything," Christoph said. "Though I'm sure Ashe will be more than willing to help you out." "Chris," Ashe groaned, tips of his ears turning pink as his brother smirked. "Nevertheless," Lenato interrupted, stopping the brothers' banter, "our home is your home, Your Majesty. We hope you enjoy your time in the city." After exchanging a few more pleasantries, Ashe and Dimitri were left alone in the manor's entryway. "Come on," Ashe said. "I'll give you the official tour." Ashe took him through the whole manor, pointing out important rooms and explaining some of the art and decor. He talked animatedly about old family stories and histories as if they were his own. "This is probably my favorite place in the house," he said fondly as they approached another room. He opened the door to a modest library. The walls were lined with shelves stacked with books and knickknacks. In the center of the room sat a couch and coffee table in front of a dormant fireplace, and there were a few sets of chairs and tables comfortably scattered around the room. In the corner near the windows was a toy box, dollhouse, and other toys that would most likely now be used primarily by Ashe's sister. "It's kind of like where the next chapter of my life began." "It's lovely," Dimitri stated. Ashe nodded. "I come here a lot when I need a break. It's very calming. Take a look around or have a seat. I'll go get us some tea and we can talk about earlier, if that's all right." "If you'd like, but we don't have to. We have plenty of time." "I know, but I'd like to." He kissed Dimitri's cheek. "I'll be right back." Dimitri wandered the library for a moment before taking a seat at a table near the windows. From here, he had a beautiful view of the horizon. The sun was still high in the sky, but eventually would set beyond the mountains, coloring the valley in a soft sunset. He felt good about the trip so far. Being king isn't easy, and he rarely finds time for a break, let alone time away from the palace. Dimitri had never been to the Western Territories, a shameful fact that he vowed to reconcile. While this was supposed to be a vacation and not a business trip, he hoped to learn about life in Gaspard and how to best help and lead its people. Most of all, Dimitri was looking forward to spending as much time with Ashe as possible. After this weekend, he didn't know when they'd be able to see each other in person again. The Council of Lords would meet for sessions during the Garland and Red Wolf moons. Hopefully Ashe would accompany his father back to the capital then. He'd make sure to mention it and invite him. The door to the library closed with a heavy boom, startling Dimitri from his thoughts. He turned to see Ashe's sister headed his way. "Hello, Your Majesty," Evelyn greeted with a curtsy. Dimitri nodded, willing his heart to stop racing. "Hello, Lady Hubert. It is wonderful to see you again." Evelyn cringed at the formal title, and Dimitri huffed a light laugh. It seemed that the noble title made her slightly uncomfortable, at least for now.
Likewise, Your Majesty. We're honored to host you for the New Year's. May I?
She gestured to one of the chairs at the table. Of course, please, Dimitri responded, quite interested that Ashe's sister would want to keep him company. As she sat, he noticed she was wringing her hands and picking at her nails. Was Evelyn nervous to be with him? You needn't be so nervous, Lady Hubert. While I am your king, I am just another person, he said with a smile, hoping to alleviate whatever fears plagued her. She clenched her fist as she recognized her nervous tic.
Thank you, Your Majesty. Though I do have one piece of business to attend with you, if that's all right.
Dimitri wondered what business the young lady could have that kept her mannerisms so serious. He nodded. Of course, my lady. I will help you in whatever way I can. Evelyn nodded and took a steadying breath. She lifted her gaze to Dimitri and spoke without doubt or hesitation.
What exactly are your intentions with my brother, Your Majesty?
The question got him so off guard, Dimitri barely held back a laugh. The look he saw on Evelyn's face stopped the sound in her throat. The sea-foam green of her eyes shone with hardened determination, and told him that to her this was a very important conversation. Well, he began, sitting up straighter to show that he was taking her question seriously, I intend to get to know him better. I've wanted to get to know him since the first time we met. His eyes softened. He's gentle and kind-hearted, chivalrous and passionate.
Do you love him?
Dimitri paused, surprised by Evelyn's bluntness. Did he love Ashe? He enjoyed spending time with him, talking about their goals and dreams, even just existing slightly in each other's presence. Ashe's nose in a book cuddled up to Dimitri's side as the king worked on his laptop. Dimitri valued Ashe's opinions, perspectives, and worldviews. They smiled and laughed, fought and cried, and Dimitri gives thanks to the goddess every day that Ashe is in his life. Yes, he admits softly. I love him. It was the first time he'd said it, but he had known it in his heart for a long time. Evelyn nodded.
I do too, you know.
It wasn't a challenge, but a statement of fact.
Ashe is very important to me, Your Majesty.
Of course, Lady Hubert. She cringed again at the formal title.
Just Evelyn, please.
Dimitri nodded. Thank you, Evelyn. If you'd like, you may call me Dimitri. Evelyn's brows furrowed in her consideration of this.
No, thank you, Your Majesty.
She politely refused, shaking her head. Dimitri did laugh then, and thought, not for the first time, how much Evelyn and Ashe were alike in their mannerisms.
I love my brother a lot,
she continued, not to be distracted.
Both of them. But Ashe is extra important to me.
She let out a harsh breath, and Dimitri could tell she was gathering the courage to continue.
When our parents died, Ashe wouldn't let us get separated. He ran away from the orphanage because they weren't going to keep us together. He found an abandoned building for us to stay in. He would take food from downstairs or sometimes from street vendors, and we know that stealing is wrong.
She paused to make sure Dimitri understood. He nodded, encouraging her to continue.
He did some bad things for us, but he's not a bad person. He tried his best to make sure I had everything I needed, even if he didn't. I'm sure I don't understand all of what he's done for me, all that he's given up to make sure I was okay. But this time, he's got to be selfish and think of himself for a change.
She lifted her gaze to meet Dimitri's.
You make him happy, Your Majesty. So happy.
Dimitri felt his cheeks heat. Ashe had been very open with his affections and feelings since they'd agreed to pursue a courtship. Dimitri had never been in doubt. But to hear from Evelyn, to hear that others see how happy Ashe is with Dimitri, that it's worthy of notice and mentioning, made his heart soar.
He was the only family I had for a long time, Your Majesty.
Evelyn continued, softer but no less passionate.
So, don't hurt him. Please don't break his heart. If you do, I'll never forgive you.
Her threat, if it could be called that, would be tattooed into Dimitri's mind forevermore. Evelyn might be young, but it was clear she held Ashe in such high regard, respected him and loved him in a way Dimitri can only imagine. He was almost jealous. The bond between a sister and brother was truly remarkable, unbreakable and indescribable to those who don't know it themselves. Dimitri placed his hand palm up on the table, an invitation for Evelyn to take it. When she did, he squeezed gently. I wouldn't dare hurt him, Lady Evelyn. I give you my word. Ashe makes me very happy as well. I can't remember the last time I was so happy. I am so glad he has you to look out for him, and I'm confident you will hold me to the task if I falter. Thank you, for trusting me with him." Evelyn considered him again, searching his face for his sincerity and trustworthiness. After a moment, she nodded, apparently satisfied that Dimitri's intentions were indeed pure and worthy of her brother.
"It's settled then, Your Majesty,"
she said, folding her hands in her lap, relaxed now that she had this talk.
"You have my blessing to date my brother."
"Evelyn!" The pair at the table startled. Evelyn turned sharply towards the new voice in the library. Ashe stood near the center of the room, far enough away that they had not noticed his arrival, but close enough to have heard the end of their conversation.
"Hi, Ashe," she squeaked. His Majesty and I,
Ashe crossed his arms, waiting for her excuse. Evelyn hesitated a moment more and crooked her head.
"What's that? Oh, be right there, Father!"
She hopped off the chair and ran past her brother out of the library without a backward glance. "Her hearing is extraordinary," Dimitri said, impressed. "I didn't even hear Lenato call for her." Ashe shook his head, smiling as he took the seat his sister just vacated. He didn't. Evelyn just invented a quick escape. Dimitri turned to Ashe, confused. Ashe laughed. "Don't worry about it." He leaned over and kissed Dimitri's cheek. "I'm sorry she ambushed you. Hopefully she didn't bother you too much." "Not at all," Dimitri assured him. "It was a rather enlightening conversation." "Is that royalty speak for awkward?" "Perhaps a little." Dimitri scooted his chair closer to Ashe and hugged the other man to his chest. "She cares about you deeply." Ashe nodded. "I know, and I love her for it," he sighed. "But she could be a little less embarrassing." "I can't say for certain, but I believe being embarrassing is in the younger sister's job description." Ashe rolled his eyes. "You're not wrong, I guess. She'll be in for a treat when she's ready to start dating." He laughed and stood from his chair, holding out his hand to Dimitri. "Are you hungry? Lunch is ready." Dimitri stood and took Ashe's hand and followed him into the dining room. Bonus. The New Year celebrations in Gaspard were just like the governing family, grand while still maintaining modesty, colorful and full of life. The party was a small affair, attended by a few influential families. Tables were piled high with hors d'oeuvres and drinks, and the ballroom echoed with music as the clock ticked closer to midnight. Dimitri stood at the edge of the ballroom, taking a small reprieve from the festivities. He scanned the ballroom, watching the guests dance and mill about. Lord Lenato was still in conversation with some of the nobility, and Ashe and Evelyn twirled and spun around near the center of the room. "Enjoying the party, Your Majesty?" Christophe approached, holding out a flute of champagne to the king. Dimitri nodded, taking the glass. "I am, thank you." Christophe nodded in return and raised his own glass slightly. "A toast, Your Majesty, to your health and happiness in the new year." Their glasses came together with a satisfying clink. "To yours as well, Lord Christophe. May the goddess bless and keep you and your family this year." They sipped their respective drinks and looked out over the ballroom. Dimitri's eyes were drawn back to Ashe, laughing with Evelyn as they danced across the floor. "He's a good kid, you know." Dimitri turned to Christophe, who was also looking towards his siblings. He continued, "he'd offer you the shirt off his back and then help you get a new one before even thinking about getting another one for himself. He's amazing. He's been through so much, and he still only wants to help others." Dimitri nodded, seeking out Ashe once again. "Yes, he's kind and compassionate towards everyone, no matter their birth or status. The truest definition of nobility." Christophe hummed, drawing Dimitri's gaze once again. "I'm glad you think so as well, Your Majesty. That's why it's my job to protect him, to make sure he isn't taken advantage of or heartlessly cast aside." "My lord?" The older man chuckled. "I mean no disrespect, Your Majesty, but I hope you know that Ashe is my brother, and I won't sit back and watch if something should happen to him." Dimitri raised his hand placatingly, finally understanding. "Oh, of course, Lord Christophe, I understand. Lady Evelyn and I have already spoken. I give you my word that I would not do anything to hurt your brother. I swear it." Christophe raised an eyebrow. "You talked to Evelyn?" Before Dimitri could respond, Ashe approached the pair, smiling and giddy. "Dimitri, come and dance with me," he said, his face red and words slightly slurred from the wine he'd been drinking. Dimitri smiled back at him, setting his mostly full champagne flute on a nearby table. "Of course, beloved." He turned back to Christophe. "Excuse me, my lord. We can continue this discussion another time." Taking Ashe's hand, the pair walked off, leaving a confused yet smiling Christophe in their wake.